And we're also here to demand an end to the sale and trade of arms to the government of Israel in any capacity. Because we know that the United States government is complicit in the way that we are contributing to the arms sale to Israel.
I'm a practicing Catholic, and Pope Francis says that there are no just wars. War is unjust. We have to stop having them. So I turn out to protest against wars, and especially when they're genocidal wars. So I don't think enough Catholics understand that. You certainly don't hear it from the pulpit too often, but it's certainly true. I mean, I think a lot about how they say they're going to deny communion to politicians who say that abortion is all right. And the Pope has said that the possession of nuclear weapons is immoral. The possession of them, not the use of them. And so theoretically, they should be denying communion to every Catholic who pays taxes. Anybody who pays federal taxes, including me. But nobody even knows that. So anyhow, and it's been hard to do this because, of course, we all know about the Holocaust, and opposing Israel reminds you of that, Holocaust guilt. But killing more people is not the solution, you know?
Right, yeah.
The Nazis killed the Jews, and now we're going to kill the Palestinians. So I just wish they'd stop sending money and arms. And I think Biden is out of his mind because he's going to lose the damn election over it, you know? Yeah. And then we're going to get Trump, for God's sake. And what's that about? I mean, holy mother of God. Anyhow.
Well, I want to mention, you know, we hear Biden and all these politicians talk about the threat to democracy if Trump gets back into power. But what kind of democracy do we have here now when, you know, the majority of the country is demanding a ceasefire, yet the politicians refuse to listen?
Absolutely.
So what kind of democracy is this?
But I also wonder if all these people demand a ceasefire, why there aren't more people here. You know, it's kind of a warm feeling. It's a happy narrative, as my dissertation advisor used to say. But what about turning out in the streets, really? Suppose we all did. They'd have to do something. Anyhow, well, I just don't know. It seems like we've moved into an era of total insanity, and I don't know what's to be done about it. Yep. I'm so glad you're talking about it.
And what do you think about the police, their repression towards students and towards protesters who are peacefully marching and in the street?
The collusion of university presidents in it, they're allowing it. Though in their case, I'm sure it's about donations. It's all about the money, you know, as with arms to Israel, because everything is about the money. That, you know, we cut that all down, we ought to be losing billions of dollars a year in arms profits. Yep. So I don't know. I think we're out of our minds.
Yeah. And did you hear Hillary Clinton talking about how the young generation doesn't know their history, and, you know, just talking bad about them? What are your thoughts on what Hillary said about the younger generation not knowing their history in the Middle East?
I think she's nuts, frankly. I mean, I had to support her against Trump, but I don't think she was ever anything to write home about, actually. I mean, I'm involved in all these groups that are anti-racist and feminist, and they say, well, if a woman were in charge, and they think, well, how about Maggie Thatcher? It's not all women you want.
Yeah.
You don't want all women in charge.
Ceasefire now.
She's saying now.
Ceasefire now.
In charge.
Ceasefire now.
The American Friends Service Committee called on people to come out today to Senator Schumer's office and call for him to stop sending weapons to the Israelis who are decimating Gaza, and I answered their call. I've been trying to answer all the calls I can, because this is something that we hear. It's really important that we here in the United States raise our voices every single way we can.
Absolutely. And what do you think about when Biden and all these politicians, Democrats, talk about the threat to democracy if Trump gets back into power? But, you know, we see millions of people in the streets demanding a ceasefire, but yet the politicians refuse to listen, and they keep sending, using our tax money to support Israel's genocide in Palestine. And What are your thoughts? How is this a democracy?
Well, they want to change the conversation, basically, because, we're anti-war. We're anti-war. We were anti-war against the United States invading Afghanistan, invading Iraq, the potential for a war in Iran. We're against Israel invading Gaza. We're consistent, and we don't want to change the subject, and we're not going to change the subject. And young people get it. They get through. They constantly want to change the subject to something else. It's anti-Semitism, or it's Trump, or something else. We need to stay clearly what we're about, because they'll come around. If you, in every single way that you can, with your friends, with your faith groups, with your elected officials, just keep the message, because it took a long time for people to come around on the war, the invasion in Iraq. It took a long time.
Right.
But it's already been, we know that public opinion is on our side. We know that. Nobody wants to see 35,000 civilians killed. No one wants to see that. And, I'm just like everybody else. I'm touched. And I can't stand by. And especially when my government is complicit. And I know that my voice counts. I know that. And I know that your voice counts, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah. And what did you think when Hillary Clinton went on that segment saying that young kids today don't know their history of the Middle East or any region? What are your thoughts when we see?
Well, I didn't hear that, but I've heard other people say the same thing. It's very interesting. I think that my generation, I was born in 1949, we grew up with reading Exodus and reading the stories about the Holocaust, and we heard the stories, and so we were shaped by that. And that's our generation. For the last 20 years, the young people have seen, Israel has been, very powerful country with nuclear weapons. They are not, they see it a little clearer. And when you go back and read the history about how Israel came to be and what happened to the Palestinians, we didn't know any Palestinians. They weren't here. Now they're our neighbors. They're our friends. They live down the street from us. And they have told their story. So we know both sides of the story, and we are learning, my generation is learning. The young generation got it. They get it. And they cannot abide by it. They know that it's really amazing how people are trying to shut them down. And they're listening to them. They can't really ignore them.
How's everybody feeling?
They're not going to shut them down.
Is everyone
And we
feeling good?
also, my generation, we can't be shut down. So we join with them.
My name is Sarah. I'm with If Not Now. We're a movement of American Jews organizing our community to end U.S. support for apartheid and demand equality and justice and a thriving future for Palestinians and Israelis. And since October 7th, we've been mobilizing our community to call for a ceasefire, a hostage exchange, conditions on military aid to Israel. And in this moment, that feels really important as Israel invades Rafah.
Yeah. And what do you think when the politicians and the media tries to portray these protests as anti-Semitic or, threats against Jewish people? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think anti-Semitism is terrible. I feel, as a Jew, like anti-Semitism is something that really concerns me, and I don't think there is anything anti-Semitic about people in this group calling for equality and justice for Palestinians. To me, that's not anti-Semitic. And where anti-Semitism does show up, I condemn that. I think that's terrible. And also, I've been to so many ceasefire protests over the past 7 months, and I haven't been at any that have felt anti-Semitic. I've felt really in community with people, and to me, it's like really important to know that all of our safety and our liberation is combined. Is intertwined. And so
We're continuing
being together,
to say the names
calling
of
for a
all the
ceasefire
children
is
that
like
have been
fighting
killed.
for all of our humanity
And I will
and collective
continue
safety.
to repeat these names, and please feel free to also
And, you know,
say their names
I've
out loud.
seen videos of
We're here
Israelis
together to draw attention to
protesting
what's happening
their
in
government.
Gaza.
Totally.
And can you just speak on that a little bit, and the
Please
police
feel free to join us
repression
if
in
you would like to
Israel
contribute.
against those protesters?
Yeah.
Next child is Leah.
I know less about that, but yeah, I mean, Israelis have been, I think a lot of Israelis, not all Israelis, but there's like a growing left in Israel of people who are really upset about the Netanyahu government and leaving the hostages to die, letting the suffering continue. And I know that there are a lot of brave activists who are, brave Israeli activists who are also facing pretty intense police repression.
And what do you think about when, like, Biden, Democrats talk about the threat to democracy if Trump gets back into power, but yet we're seeing millions of people demanding a ceasefire, yet the politicians refuse to listen, and they call on the NYPD or the cops around the country to oppress protesters and students.
Yeah.
How is this democracy?
Yeah, I mean, I will say I'm more concerned about a Trump presidency than another Biden presidency, but I'm very concerned also about the state of democracy in our country and the really violent police repression that protesters have faced.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have been standing in the street yelling at buildings trying to stop wars for over half a century. A big part of the problem is the war machine, and it's all about money. Karl Marx had, a good point there. And I'm losing my thread.
I'll say her name out loud. Again, if anyone wants to repeat her name, to honor her memory.
Well, I'm going to keep saying the same thing over and over because that's where I think the
She was
problem
71 years old.
Comes down to the money,
She was the best
right?
grandmother in her world, in the world.
And,
her spirit was with her,
Hillary
with her
Clinton,
grandchildren.
recently
She loved
went
gathering
on
them
a
around
TV
her.
show,
She was kind,
news show,
tender, and
talking
intelligent.
about how the younger generation doesn't
She
know
stayed with us at the
what
beginning
they're
of the
talking
war
about,
for 3
they
months,
don't know
and those
their
were the best
history.
3 months of her life.
What are your thoughts about
She
that?
returned home
Okay.
with all her neighbors and returned the situation was normal in the residential area. She insisted
I
on
am
staying in their home.
enthralled by the student
what they
protesters.
had in their hands
I
was not
am
for them alone.
deeply
On
respectful
March
of
1st, the
them
occupation
and want to
bombed their
do anything I
house in front
can
of
to
Deir
support
al-Balah. Only
them.
the guard, Emma al-Ragli, was with
They are
them.
carrying on a
Also
wonderful
martyred.
tradition.
They left, and we were deprived of
been
the blessing of their presence.
Part of student protesters protests many years ago, and watching different student protests through the last 70 years, and the students have been on the right side of history every single time. And they are on the right side of history this time. And when in California, the cops watched counter-protesters beat up peaceful protesters, that was a lesson to all of us, a demonstration to all of us in how the system works. These college presidents are terrified of losing money from the big donors. It comes down to money again. But back to the students, my heart is with them. They're brave, they're wonderful.
Thank you very much.